If kids are required to go to school, why aren't school lunches free? My son's school gives all kids free lunch and breakfast, regardless of income. When I was in school, they were so cheap, they were trying to classify catsup as a vegetable to save money, and if you owed the school office any money, you couldn't even buy lunch until you paid that off first. My parents were too proud to sign us up for free lunches, even though we were poor. Actually, they didn't sign us up because they didn't benefit from it themselves. My senior year, I filled out the forms and signed them myself, so my siblings and I could eat at least one good meal a day. We live in a very small rural North Dakota town. I haven't had kids in elementary school here, but I have had them in middle and high school. None of the kids in our school district pay for breakfast or lunch. In middle school we only have to buy basic supplies. Pens, pencils, notebooks. In high school we do not have to buy any supplies at all. The kids use laptops for most of their classes. I think my junior has one textbook. My sophomore does not have any textbooks. $60 a year gets my kids into any and all field trips and school functions. In the US there's a federal program for providing free or reduced price lunches and breakfasts to low-income children in public schools. The same program provides free meals to all children in districts that are primarily low-income. If the family isn't in a district that is primarily low-income and isn't low-income themselves, it is assumed that they can afford to pay for the subsidized meals that are served or sent a packed lunch. This frees up money that would be spent on those meals to be spent on other things that schools need. It's free in my county and NC with an average cost of living. Republicans don't want to pass it because it can lead to fraud of the funds. If you're still low income you still qualify, and there's been plenty of counties in the US that still give everyone free meals. Maybe unpopular, but school breakfast and lunch together is around $5 a day, so $25 for the week for 10 meals. If you don't qualify for free meals by being low income, why is it so difficult to pay $25 a week for your kids' food at school? We, the Netherlands, have actually started doing this last year, and it actually improves concentration and everything. It's sad that we started doing this because of increasing wealth inequality leading to growing numbers of children growing up in poverty, even though we're one of the richest countries on the planet. But it works. For context, the old situation wasn't that schools provided commercial lunches, but that kids were expected to go home for lunch and or bring their own lunch. Low-income districts are free breakfast too. The quality of food is questionable. Breakfast usually consists of something like Trix yogurt, a fruit apple or orange, and granola bar. No hot breakfast. Jam-packed with corn syrup and in calories but offering little nutritional value. And lunches are the same, microwavable, processed food stuff. High in cholesterol, salt, high fructose corn syrup. So free comes at a price that's costing people's children's ability to learn and function. It's because of lobbyists making school cafeterias a place where private companies have competition-free access to customers. In the majority of cases in the USA, which I assume is where you are talking about, most school cafeterias are leased to Sodexo, Aramark, or some other company to operate for profit. There may be programs that have vouchers or coupons for low-income families to have the company paid that way, but that varies based on state and county. I agree with free lunch, but this isn't the logic. If the kids don't go to school, the parents still need to feed them anyway. The responsibility to take care of your children isn't fringent upon geological location, and children being at the school does not necessarily impede a parent's ability to provide food. Lack of access to proper nutrition in general would be a better reason for it, not just that the kids happen to be there. Basically because as a parent you have a moral and legal obligation to provide basic care for your children, which includes, feeding them. If they weren't at school, you would have to provide them lunch, so no difference in where they consume it. That being said, there are a lot of states districts that have programs that either do feed children for free or provide discounted free lunches for low-income families. District my kids go to is free lunch for all students. Oddly, it's a highly conservative area as well, so I have no idea how they pulled that off. Also, if your kid gets free lunch in the state, they automatically give each kid like $400 on an EBT card through the state. My wife and I were baffled how we qualified for that the first time they showed up because we do pretty good, but it's really just every kid in our district. I've thought about this a lot. Because the state I live in makes it into an income-based thing, but it's not like we don't pay taxes for the public schools. And so really, what's the point of a cafeteria in the building if it's just a semi-buffet situation you pay for too? Like a public school should already be an obvious food for the child type areas need to get with it. Main reason the education system doesn't give a F and lets you starve if you are broke, Good thing it's not in my school and PPL get dinner passes instead of pay or no food or food at home. Also we know that school makes me insert adjective that shows miserability, for example sad, depressed, cry, stupid, blocked, broken, brutalized, devastated, feel useless, breakdown, poisoned, etc. My son noticed his friend never had lunches, so he asked me to send a second peanut butter and jelly sandwich with him every day for the entirety of 7th grade so he could tell her my mom always sends me to, but I'm not that hungry. I know her mom, and of course we never said a word. After that CA went to 100 free lunches for all. I'm so proud of my son for that. Some states are finally doing it. Massachusetts now provides them free for all students. The great thing is that it's not means-based, so there are no hoops to jump through, which add extra overhead, paperwork, and end up excluding kids who need it because their parents didn't fill out the right forms or whatever. All schools should do this. Breakfast too, because nothing is free. Someone's paying for that lunch, so why not have the person eating it, or those responsible for them, pay it? Certain states' counties voted to use tax dollars to fund school lunches. That's fine because the local community voted for it, rather than it being the baseline. Those who disagree can move somewhere that suits them better. They should be. In some countries and US states they are. The only thing schools should charge for are extra treats such as cookies or soda, if they're even offered. The arguments for charging children for basic school meals are performative fiscal conservatism and the desire to undermine the inherently egalitarian idea of public education. Every school has a program that if you can afford a couple bucks a day, the lunches are free. You have to actually be financially unable though. You can't just be annoyed that you have to pay for their lunch when you should be financially responsible for all their meals anyway. Also, you're allowed to pack them a lunch if you want. Much better chance of being free in a blue state. Republicans are always the ones to vote them down. My guess as to why nutrition is so important to brain development, especially in those early school years. The less educated the populace, the more likely they are to vote Republican. They need an uneducated populace to stay in power, because Republicans treat politics as a game instead of trying to better the lives of the citizens. You look at other developed countries and what they provide to their citizens, and then look at the absolute disdain our government has for its citizens, and it's pathetic. This country is pathetic and getting worse every day. They are in some states. But I guess the answer to your question is it depends on the local priorities. If children are a priority, you'll see it reflected in better schools and better nutrition programs. And if they aren't, you get the state of Mississippi. I support free school lunches, but this logic doesn't make sense. Being at school doesn't require kids to eat when they otherwise would not have. They can eat or not, just like at home. Jury duty is required, but you don't get free lunch. My kid's school's district offer free lunch to all students this year. Last year, if income was low enough, it would also be free or reduced. Have never known any schools to not offer free lunch programs for those below certain incomes. Many required things aren't free, so I'm not following your surprise. There are much better arguments for why some things should be done differently, with lunches and more, but I'm not sure required is all that compelling. Because our world revolves around money. They don't give a fuck if your kid eats. They care about their money, and in America, people are valued significantly less than money is. The best part is that it's only getting worse. I thought they were. I never paid for lunch in school, unless you wanted the cool food like pizza sticks etc. that the cool kids ate. But the regular old school lunch line food was free. I thought, I could have sworn. Some areas claim it makes kids entitled, or that hunger is relative. Everywhere I have lived, kids can get free or reduced school lunch, and they now have ways so nobody knows, so shame is not a barrier. Massachusetts just made school lunch free for everybody for that reason. Because if you think people are bitchy about school district taxes now, just wait till you see what happens when they implement a tax hike to raise enough money to give every student a free lunch every day. I remember being in high school and getting the lunch bill. It was crazy expensive and I felt so bad that my parents had to pay it. Low income students got it for free, but we were middle class. I think most states have financial need-based school lunches. Basically they take family size, compare it against a table. If you live under that threshold, then you get free lunches. It is absolutely shocking the number of people who think this is a problem and not the families who chose to have children not being able to provide them the basic needs. I want my taxes to go to something useful, like bombing foreign citizens or subsidies for multi-billion-dollar corporations that go into the pockets of the executives. I want my taxes to go to something useful, like bombing foreign citizens or subsidies from multi-billion-dollar corporations that go into the pockets of the executives. Depending on your income, there are reduced free lunches. When I was in high school, the reduced lunch was 40 cents. Wouldn't be against scrapping that method though, because Republicans keep voting against it. They are adamant that every pregnancy end in a birth at all costs, but once it's out of the womb, to hell with them. While I definitely think they should be, the rationale is, students are not required to eat the school-provided lunch. They are free to bring their own, because nothing good happens in the US unless it benefits corporations. There's no financial incentive to provide lunch, so our government won't do it. Seriously. It's along the lines of being required to attend a work meeting during lunch hours. Lunch better damn well be served during the meeting. In some countries there, or in some schools, for example in disadvantaged areas, if your kids were at home you'd have to pay to feed them anyway. Incompetent politicians that rather spend our tax money on wars and who knows what other BS. 100 support our tax-paying dollar going to this. Why pay a fortune for gross school lunches when you can just make some sandwiches at home and bring those? That's how we did it in my country. They are in Michigan as of this school year. All public school students can receive a free breakfast and a free lunch at school. Incredible. Republicans is the short answer. Why pay for kids to eat when they can use that money for turning little brown kids into skeletons? This depends on your district. Many offer free lunch and breakfast. So you have to be of a certain income standard to get lunch free. Public schools can afford to pay teachers a decent wage. Think about how much feeding a school full of kids costs 5 days a week.